Kennedy is here. Ms. O'Brien's here. Ms. Skomersky will be late tonight. Ms. Slavik, Ms. Taylor are both here. So if we could rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. All right, we will begin tonight with our student council representatives, Emma and Ron. Welcome.
Thank you. As you probably know, Student Council took a little break from all of our activities these past few weeks. We really wanted to help the students focus on studying for their midterms, but we're very excited to be back. Next week on February 8th, we have our annual Valentine's Day decorating, and we'll be turning the lobby pink for the holiday.
We are also looking into potential fundraisers to fund our annual field trip, which will take place at the end of the school year. And that is about it for now. Thank you very much.
Thank you both. All right, next we will move into approval of draft minutes for January 11th. And everybody that's present here in the room was present. So I will need a motion to accept. Jen, Kathleen, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Start off next with our board forum, and we'll start Emily. Thank you. Joanne, Kathleen, Jen, Cheryl. I'm good as well for now. Thank you. Public forum. Residents, students, employees, and business representatives of the East Greenbush Central School District may address the board on matters concerning programs and/or operations of the district, other than matters involving personnel. Members of the board do not directly respond to citizen concerns during the public forum. If a response is appropriate, either the president or superintendent will contact the individual in the near future. Those persons wishing to address the board will be recognized by the chair of the meeting and should state for the record their name, address, or affiliation with the district or business. While the board does not wish to infringe upon free speech protections, it must be stressed that the visitors forum is not deemed to be an open forum. The board president will conduct a forum for the orderly and efficient operation of board business. In addition, any remarks which may be considered defamatory or stigmatizing are prohibited and will be declared out of order. All comments shall be limited to 5 minutes. Is there anybody that would like to address the board? With none, thank you. We will move on and start with reports and presentations, and then we'll turn it over to Jeff.
Good evening, everyone. Just a brief update on our capital project planning. We are proceeding, working with our architect and our construction managers to plan for the replacement of the fire and smoke alarm system at the high school. That will be a significant project that will affect our use of the building over the summer. We anticipate, should we have board approval for our summer school program, which we talked about a little bit tonight and at our next meeting, that program location would likely be Goff School because of the fact that the building will be operating without an active fire and smoke alarm system for a while as that project proceeds. Initially, we told the board that we would consider the feedback that we received at the Goff meeting in December. Mrs. Wager has been meeting with Capital Markets, which is our fiscal advisor, that plans our borrowing and our debt service schedule related to capital projects. We plan to present some information to the board at the next meeting regarding the board's request to look at the options of having the vote in May of next year compared to what we had discussed as a tentative October. So that financial information has a bearing on the timing of the capital project. It has a bearing on the amount of principal and interest that we budget for payment of within our general fund budget. We also have captured some of the information from the music department. We communicated that information to the architects, and we are also proceeding, still working with stakeholders, including the principals of Red Mill and Janae, staff and parents on the finalization of the design of the playgrounds. So there's a lot of work still occurring within the existing project as we plan for a future project, and we'll keep the board updated on what's happening with our efforts to make sure that we are maintaining our facilities and our grounds.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions, comments? So this the report that we got when we were at GOF of all the proposals that was presented to the architect, that's still being updated, being finalized.
It's being finalized. We're going to take some steps to confirm some of the information, including the costs. And we're on schedule to submit the building condition survey in March.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Under discussion items, the development of the 2023-2024 budget federal grant analysis.
It's going to be in this
It's
packet.
going to be over here to Linda.
Good evening, everyone. Attached for review tonight are two reports. The first is the federal grants summary, and this is a report that will look familiar to you because we've done this a couple of times before. But I want to remind everyone that our federal grants, and when I'm talking about the federal grants, I'm talking about the CARISA funds and the ARP funds. We received, our allocated amount was just over $7 million. So to date, this report goes through each one of those grants and the allocations. So I want to report to you that the CARISA funds, which are expiring on September 30th of 2023, are scheduled to be completely expended by June 30th of this year. You'll see on the reports on page 1 and 2, these are the CARISA funds. There are little bits of funds left, $1,300 in the Gear 2 and $63,000 in ESSER 2. Those funds will be allocated and spent on salaries and benefits by June 30th. The remaining funds are the ARP funds, which are the American Rescue Plan funds. So beginning with on page 3, the main ARP grant was almost $2.4 million to date. We have spent most of that grant. We have approximately $761,000 left to be reallocated. And we'll talk about how I'm going to suggest that we reallocate those funds and use those funds so that they are fully expended by the end of the following year, June 30th, 2024. On page 4, are the other allocations of the ARP funds. There were 3 allocations. One was the learning loss grant that was just about $500,000. We have about $126,000 left that we will reallocate, and we'll talk about that shortly. The summer enrichment program was $100,000, and we have used all of that money at this point. And then the comprehensive after-school grant was another $100,000. And we are scheduled to have about $24,000 left in that grant that we will also look to reallocate. So on the second report that I've attached for you is basically a proposal of how I think we should possibly look to consider using the remaining of fund balance or federal funds. So as I said, in the ARP grant, there was approximately $761,000 available. So what I suggest we do is we maintain our summer school program as we have in the past, and this would be our general ed K-8 summer school. So I am recommending that we use the $170,000 towards that. I am also proposing that we charge one of the pre-K classes for next year to this grant as well. So we will talk about pre-K a little bit later, but our plan is we will propose to you that we continue our plan as is, and we would look to charge one of the classes to this ARP grant. I also am proposing that we continue to fund the salaries and benefits for the fitness nutrition coordinator, as well as 7 TA salaries. And then we'll be down to the end of this money. And so I'm looking to possibly, I don't want to have too much money left. And so I'm suggesting that we then target our general ed summer school program in the 24-25 school year. We target that program, and so we spend less on that, and that would use up the remaining balance, the $80,000. As I talked about, we also have the ARP Learning Loss Grant. We have approximately $126,000 there, and I would like to use that to cover the salary and benefits for 2 of our interventionists. And then also the remaining about $24,000 in the after school, comprehensive after school. I'm suggesting that we use all of that towards tutoring in 23-24 before we charge anything to the general fund. This way, this will use up all of our federal funds primarily by June 30th of 2024, and then by the end of the summer school program in July of 2024 as well. And then that way we will have, I want to make sure that we use every penny of that money. So that's my suggestion on that. Are there any questions on these individual grant amounts or allocations?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Jim.
For the 2 early interventionists you mentioned for the spending down the ARP, are those current positions or would those be new hires?
No. So originally, we funded 10
Okay.
district-wide interventionists in this grant. We have been slowly taking them out of the grant, and as retirements occur, we've been charging those to the general fund. This current year, we're charging 6 of those salaries to the federal grant. We currently have retirements that we will take 3 of those positions and slide them into. 2 of them are elementary retirements, and 1 is a reading retirement.
Okay.
And so 3 of them will come out of the grant into the general fund, filling those. We have 3 more that are left. And so 2 of them will be funded out of the grant, and 1 we're going to propose we move into the general fund.
Okay, I got it.
So over time, as people have retired in
Yeah,
the
you're
last couple
kind
of
of
years,
just
we've done what
moving
we
the lines.
said we were going to do. If the certification areas lined up of the retirees, either elementary or reading,
Mhm.
we've moved those people into positions. So we've gone from 10 to 8 to 6. We're at 6 right now, and we're going to put 2 in here, but we're also, as we talk about the general fund budget at the next meeting, which we're planning to do, we'll show how we're moved away from reliance on those federal funds in a way that will not have a significant impact on the general fund. There will be some things that we want to maintain.
Mhm.
For example, we believe we're going to try to maintain 3 intervention specialists of the 10 we originally created, and we have some data to support that in terms of student needs, but it happens to be working out in terms of the retirements that we're getting, so that we can keep our people. We won't need to lay anybody off.
Great. Okay, thanks.
Sure. Mr. Mann, did you have a question?
Yes, so we're currently in 22-23 school year,
Yes,
correct?
we are.
All right, so we're good for summer school for this year,
We've already had summer school for this year.
for
Yes,
22-23.
yes. And we'll have money for 23-24. So in July, this July, we'll have a full program. And then I'm suggesting in the following July of 24, that we have a more targeted general ed summer school
Okay,
program.
and that would be the $80,000.
Yes,
So the pre-K 1 class, is that also for the 23-24 school year? So that would
yes,
be
that's for
next
23-24.
September,
Yes,
September of 20. So it would actually be September 24th.
Yes, for the 23-24 school year.
Okay.
Yes.
Is that adding an additional class or
No.
paying for one of the?
It's paying for one of the 3 current classes that we have if we maintain the program exactly as is. I'm suggesting we keep one of the classes in the federal funds. And then we'll talk a little bit later on here. Also, we're going to talk about
Mhm.
pre-K and how I'm suggesting we fund it going forward.
So for the 23-24 school year, we have federal funding available for one pre-K class.
Yes.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay.
Anyone? Nobody else? Good. All right. I'm assuming. Linda, back at you.
I know. Yes.
Tax refund Empire Realty investors.
Yes. So you may recall that back in 2020, Empire Realty, the trial was held for them. And they were looking to reduce their assessed property value from $14.7 million down to $9.3 million. So as a result of that, we did issue refunds for the 2018, 19, and 20 school year. Right after that, the town of East Greenbush appealed this decision. So then it went back to court again. This was recently decided, and it was more decided in the Empire Realty's favor. So they kept the assessed value at the $14.69 million. And so that necessitated that we had to, by court order, issue a refund for the 2021 school year and 2022 school year. And we did issue that refund last week. We sent it out. It was $242,000. We did pay for it out of our tax reserve funds. And so this has been settled now at this point. Are there any questions on that?
We still have Linda.
Next, we'll move into our pre-K survey and discussion.
Thanks again. So a board member recently asked us about UPK programs. How are other districts handling their UPK programs? Who's running the UPK programs? How many years? Do they provide transportation and before and after school services? So I sent out a survey to all of the component districts within Questar, as well as several of the suburban council school districts. So I surveyed 31 school districts, and as of the date when I wrote this report, which was the 19th, I heard back from 11 school districts. 6 of those school districts have been running their UPK program for over 10 years. You will note that, well, one of them is South Colony, and they have a half-day pre-K, so I think that's the targeted pre-K. That's not a universal pre-K. But the other school districts, Saratoga, Hoosick Falls, Lansingburg, Rensselaer, and Troy, have been running their UPK programs for quite a while now. You will note that some of these are city school districts that are considered a higher need school district. So the funding for their UPK program is different than it would be for ours. The remaining school districts that are listed there: Averill Park, New Lebanon, Guilderland, Burnt Hills, and I'm not quite sure about Taconic Hills. They didn't give me how long, but they've all been running it anywhere from a half year to 2 years. And that's exactly when the new funding came out, started appearing on there. So then I asked, how are they doing? Are they providing transportation? I have attached for you the whole survey there. Most are not providing transportation, but some are. But in order for us to consider, our district to consider providing transportation for UPK, we would have, there's a few considerations. First, we'd have to make sure we have available drivers and available buses. Our UPK program runs from 8:15 to 2:15. So at 2:15 in the afternoon, when UPK is dismissing, our buses are already out on the road for high school and middle school. We also have to consider that we would need monitors or aides on all of the buses. And we we'd be required to have car seats for all of the children on the buses as well. So if we were to have after school care, and several of the schools do have this, but some of them, let's see, Lansingburg, Troy, and Averill Park, they do offer after school care. Burn Hills, Ballston Lake offers after school care through their YMCA, which is where their pre-K is located. So in order for us to consider after school care services, GCC, Greenbush Childcare, is our current provider of after school services. They would need to receive a different license in order to have a UP or have a pre-K after school program. Our pre-K program ends at 2:15. So if we were to have, they indicated to us last year that if we were to have after school, they would only be able to have one site. So in this example, I'm saying if we have 3 locations, our current UPK is at DPS, Janae, and Red Mill. So I took Janae being the centralized location. And I said, if we were to have a after school program there, we would have to be able to transport the students from the other schools to here, to Janae. And then we'd have to have a location for the UPK students to be at, because dismissal is not completed at Janae until 3:30 in the afternoon. So those are all considerations that we would need to look at. Some of them are easier to obtain than others, but at this point, that's where we're at with UPK. So I did attach there for you the full survey, the results, all of the school districts, and what they had to say. As well as we also had, this is from last year, I've attached for you, where GCC sent out a survey to parents that were selected for the UPK program to see if they were interested in before or after school program. You can see that the before school program, not so much. There was interest in an after school care program.
The after-school program is at a cost to the parent, correct?
It is at a cost to the parents, yes.
We spoke with GCC last year about this because we had some parents asking about why we couldn't have after-school care at each of the sites for this year. The logistics that Linda talked about come into play in terms of you'd have to transport students from DPS, for example, to Janae, or from Red Mill to Janae, and that transportation would be difficult. Secondly, Kim Bourbon, who's the director of GCC, indicated that she was struggling with staffing and hiring staffing for her existing school age program. And she anticipated that it would be difficult to hire folks, and she would have to go through the licensing process, because for under five-year-olds, there's a different license and a different process that she would have to go through OCFS for. They were certainly open to doing it and willing to do it, but at the time, the transportation, the staffing, and the availability of employees was an issue for them.
And what about the space here, Jeanette? Because currently they're in the cafeteria.
Right. Well, that would be another issue. The school would still be operating at the time that the kids would be coming, the pre-K kids would be coming here, so it would be difficult to try to find a location.
Yeah,
Nothing's impossible, but it
Janae
is
uses
challenging.
their cafeteria for parent
GCC.
pickup, and yeah, so GCC, I believe, is in the gym.
So currently how we work right now, parent pickup is in the cafeteria, that's where we stage about 60 to 80 families every day. GCC gathers all the students out of the building in the auditorium, and then once we're done, they go down and take over the cafeteria.
So how do students get assigned to the classroom, since it can't really be where you would primarily go to elementary school, right? There has to be some sort of mixture. So how do you do that now?
Yeah, the whole pre-K selection is done by lottery. So usually during the month of March, families submit their application.
Mhm.
On there, they do put their preference of location. So we keep track of all of that. And then we do the lottery. When we do the lottery, as we pick them, we fill those slots according to their highest priority that we can accommodate.
So one of the ideas that I would have to suggest for aftercare, if that's most important and parents want that you could offer aftercare at one location, but say if you would like, if your child needs aftercare, you would have to be at this location. So that you don't have to transport students, you could have just that classroom be the aftercare classroom, depending upon what the need is and the want. That way, that would cut down on your having to shuffle those kids around. Just an idea, you can.
So you're
Taylor.
saying just one class of the UPK would have that option then, just one
Yeah, if you
school
look
would
at
offer it?
yeah, so if you look at the survey
Yeah.
results on like who actually needed aftercare, you probably, when we send out it in March, right, we could ask like, do you anticipate needing aftercare? If they say yes, there would have to be the understanding like you would have to bring your child to this school. This school is the only school that offers aftercare. That way the district does not have to shuttle the kids around. They will all be in that same classroom, and then they would stay for the aftercare. That's just an idea that, I had when I was thinking about, how
So-
you could work.
For instance, if it was Red Mill, the parents would be responsible to transport them here to Genet, where the after school, is that what you're saying?
No, so if you needed aftercare as a parent, then you would have to check the box that says my child is going to go to Genet.
You'd only be assigned to the school that had the one
Yeah.
after care
So if it's a
program.
lot,
Right.
you would still be in the lottery system.
Yep,
So
I understand.
if your name got picked and you wanted Janae because it's aftercare, you would have to, get that spot. But I think it would help, you in having to shuttle students around. You would already have them in your predetermined aftercare location.
It would be very
Okay.
limited. It's worth looking into. It would be very limited. It would only accommodate 18 of the families that, of children that participated in our,
Yeah.
in our program.
Or you
because
could
it's only
offer it
one
at
site.
2 locations then.
Well, the other issue.
I don't know
with
that GCC
too-
has the staff to do that.
Um,
Certainly, I understand.
I think
where
I think here's this is my opinion, is that pre-K is we know the benefits of pre-K. So many studies have been done that talk to that. Right, that's not up for the debate. It's how can we logistically make it work right in our district, and are we offering it to the parents who need it and the families who need it the most? Having your day end at in the 2 o'clock hour does not suffice for many families who are working. And those, are the families who probably, would need this, and the children would benefit the most, right? And the studies show that it's, and why there's all this funding for the city districts is it's the socioeconomic aspect of it. And I think that we probably should, I feel like, have those conversations and those discussions about which children, our families are able to access this, that this wonderful benefit. But if we're excluding people because they work and they don't have a support system to come pick their child up, I think we need to look at that. And
Well, I agree
just-
with you on the fact that there are some families that who on a needs basis need a pre-K program for the social development of their children and for their challenges regarding work, etc. UPK regulations currently do not allow us to target certain students who may be economically disadvantaged or family. We are required by the UPK regulations to draw from a lottery at random.
Right,
There's
Right.
the targeted program that we're not eligible for because our free and reduced lunch percentage is not high enough. It does enable you and requires you to target programming for students who meet a certain criteria. One of the things we're going to try to do in our advocacy, and we're having advocacy meetings that I'm going to talk about on February 16th, is see what flexibility the state might consider regarding the use of these UPK funds, because just a few years ago, districts like East Greenbush were not receiving those monies, but we can't spend all those monies right now. And the state aid run that came in today doubled our amount of money for
Mhm.
pre-K. However, we can only spend under the regulations 5,400 hours per child. So when we expand pre-K, we can only spend, it costs us right now about $10,000 per child. That $4,600 per child is being made up by the grants and the general fund. So the amount of money that's available is pretty significant. The limit on the cost that you can spend of UPK grant per child limits the number of classes you can have, as does classroom space. So in the ideal situation, we would have the flexibility to be reimbursed by the state close to our actual cost for running the program per child. And we'd have the flexibility to be able to say, well, we know there are some kids that are going to be coming into kindergarten in 2 years who will likely have significant needs. We'd like to get those kids into pre-K. But right now it's a random lottery, and that's a product of the state regulations.
Yeah, and your random lottery though is even, it's probably not a true sample of who would actually sign up, because if a family says, well, I can't drop, I need to be at work at this time and I need to pick my kid up at this time, they're not even going to apply for the lottery, because there is no way that they will even be able to manage that situation at all, you know? So I think, right, we already have a higher demand than what we can offer, but then realizing that what we offer probably doesn't work for a lot of the families as well. So yeah.
I don't disagree. I just think there are regulations that are governing how we can use our UPK money, and there are OCFS regulations that govern how Greenbush Child Care or the YMCA or other child care agencies that we might pursue to provide that after school care have to operate under. For example, I don't see it as problematic for our agencies to get a license for 4-year-olds. It just becomes an issue of, do they have available staff to do it? And they're struggling with some of the same shortages that we do.
Would
I
we
mean,
have to
as you
get the
know,
license?
daycare is a big issue across the state. The access to daycare is a huge issue for many working families. I'm in full agreement with you.
Yeah.
But there are some regulatory changes that need to happen to make it easier for schools to have daycares in the school building.
Who has to get the license? The district or GCC?
GCC has to be licensed for the actual building. So all of our 5 elementary schools have licenses approved by OCFS for a school-aged childcare program before and after school,
Not a
4-year-old and under.
And I would say right now, there's a lot of money going to these agencies that provide after school programs. So I'm sure, you know, and if they're receptive to it, I'm sure that is a road we can go down, you know, if we choose to.
Yeah, I agree.
I think that our discussions about pre-K is year by year, and I think that I would want us to start to look at a longer term plan. How do we set these kids up for success starting in pre-K, and how do we expand it and make it so more families, the families who, you know, especially need this, even have the opportunity to take advantage. I think that, you know, if it's a long-term goal, great. I think that we need to have those conversations, and we need to figure out, you know, what our barriers are and identify them so we can start to talk and have those conversations.
We wanted to have this dialogue starting tonight because Linda's going to talk about, we do have a plan to sustain the classes that we have this year and the slot for next year. And we are able to fund it. And we want to let our families know that it's available soon, because we're having a lot of inquiries coming to the district regarding, families need to make decisions early regarding what their childcare arrangements are going to be next year. And we'd like to be able to roll out the information. It's one of the reasons we put this on tonight's meeting, and Linda's going to talk about the plan to cover the costs. Questar BOCES last Friday rolled out a presentation on their pre-K program, which we're very happy with. And we would like to recommend that we keep the 3 classes plus the slots at ECIC for next year, as we continue to have these discussions about some of the challenges that the families have, et cetera. But I think it's an important discussion to have. It's something I've wanted to have in the district since I came here as the superintendent. We never were eligible for the funding. We've only had it for 2 years now. I think we're growing into this.
Right.
We're learning about it, and we're also, we have many more families that want it than what we can accommodate right now.
Right.
So I'm in full agreement with you. I just think there's some issues that the state needs to help us with, and we're going to be making some of those points when we meet with our legislators later this month.
Correct.
Yeah.
So the next document that I attached for you there is I actually started this back in August. We had talked about it a little bit, projecting what pre-K would cost. So I had there, we started in the 21-22 school year. We had 2 classes, both located at Red Mill. The cost of the program, it wasn't a full year program because we didn't start until, I believe, November. So it cost us $301,000 in that year. In 22-23, this current year, we expanded our program. We now have 3 classes, 1 class located at DPS, 1 at Janae, 1 at Red Mill. Each have 18 students in them. And then we were also able to collaborate with the Early Childhood Education Center located on Blooming Grove. And they had room for 7 students in an integrated class over there. So going forward to 23-24, if we continue the program as is, we now received the price from Questar as to a classroom. The classroom price is $189,600. And so that for 3 classes will be $568,800. ECEC, I'm unsure about, and so I added 3% to that cost to come up with $51,191. So next year, we expect that UPK is going to cost us almost $620,000. And so how do we pay for that? I already suggested to you that we pay for 1 class, $189,600 out of the American Rescue Plan. We will receive aid at $5,400 per student. That's $329,400. And then I'm suggesting that we build into the budget $101,000 to pay for the balance of that. This will reduce our reliance on the federal funds, start to bring more of this into the general fund, and maintain our program as it is. Are there questions on that?
What do you think the cost difference is between the 2 different, the BOCES and the education center?
The difference in price per student?
Yes.
Yeah, well, the Questar program is a rather large program that has been established, and we created these classrooms. We've supplied these classrooms along with supplies coming from Questar as well. The program, I'm going to guess that part of that has to do with salaries and benefits versus salaries and benefits at ECEC.
Teaching assistants generally and teachers that are employed by the public schools, including Questar, generally would make more and have better benefits that cost more than an agency such as ECEC. So we are looking for some direction, and we want to go forward with the 3 classes and the additional slots at ECAG for next year. We're going to present more information regarding the general fund budget at the next meeting. The state aid run, I did a preliminary review of it today. Linda has to really take a fine look at it to make sure that some of their estimates are correct. But we received a very significant foundation aid increase, more than what was projected for next year. I think as far as revenue in terms of aid, we're going to be in better shape than we've been for some time. It's 21% increase in foundation aid for the East Greenbush School District. I don't know that won't change. Typically, when the legislature acts on the governor's budget, it increases, but there are some districts that did not benefit within our region to the same tune that we did. It's about time. But I'm not concerned that we can't fund the 1 class in the general fund. And I think Linda is confident that we have the room in there to do it, and we want to let our families know that this program is going to be available in its current format.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear that it's going to continue. I think it's something that should. I think it's an asset to the school district as a whole. And like Emily was saying, to just kind of continue these conversations about, can we offer aftercare, even if it's at one place, is important.
I will have a follow-up conversation with Kim Bourbon. I can also talk to some other agencies within the region who have reached out to us in the past about after-school care. I've been recently receiving some emails, and we'll bring back more information. I do think it is a barrier to the families. It's just logistically and difficult to do with the little ones.
Mhm.
Certainly is a need.
Yeah.
You said Questar rolled out last Friday, they rolled out a presentation. Can you tell us a little bit about
Yeah, they were just talking about the fact that the UPK program has expanded at Questar. They have, I think, I don't know exactly how many classrooms, at least 9 classrooms that they currently operate right now. They talked about our program and that they were available as a provider to provide pre-K to the component districts. There were some questions about districts that didn't have pre-K about the funding. They addressed some of those questions. We were able to address some of those questions as how it worked. We indicated that we were very happy with the quality of the program. They now have a dedicated administrator because they have 5 different sites. It's 5 different districts, I think.
Yes.
And he's been doing a very good job, particularly with communication with our principals and with me, as far as weather-related decisions are made. And it was just basically an invitation if the districts are interested in starting a UPK program, that Questar would be willing to provide them with a proposal.
And their proposal is the 568.8 for 23-24 school year,
Yes.
$189,000 per class.
Yeah.
In 3 classes. Now, normally with our agreements with Questar, they rent space from us. Is this we providing the space they bring in the teachers?
We provide the classrooms and they have brought in the staffing. So there are teachers and TAs. They brought in some of the supplies and equipment, and we also assisted with that.
And our principals have included, our Helen and Wayne and Jack have included the children and the staff and the parents in a lot of K-5 activities that go on in the school. We have the 3 principals here. I don't know if they want to, if it's okay with the board to comment on how pre-K has gone this year.
I mean, this is Randall's second year of doing it, so it's been fantastic, and I think it's a great way to form an early partnership with the families. And they're just so invested in our school district at an earlier age. And our kindergarten teachers have absolutely noticed students that arrive in our kindergarten. And Nate and Jack just started with it.
I would say that, it's made a very interesting transition, having a pre-K department. They're a wonderful 18 really nice to actually see the next crop of kindergartners that are J kids that we can actually see firsthand. You know, and it's also been great to have conversations with pre-K teachers. She's like, you know, I got a concern about a child, you know, we can work with them to help them, you know, ascertain what services that they may need or even guide the parents as to help them, which has also been a true asset to make sure that the kids are supported for when they do make the transition to any one of our buildings. So.
No, I echo everything that Ellen and Wayne have said. Being at Title I school and seeing some of our families join our school community, as well as, you know, last year at Red Mill, it's just another opportunity for our friends that get exposure to learning and routines. They're a blast. They're a blast. To see how quickly 4-year-olds are able to get into a routine, it's only going to help them, you know, with their learning and transition. It's been a lot of fun, and love having them.
Currently, the pickup and drop off is by the parents.
Yes.
Yes.
The other thing to note is I responded to Emily's comments, the transportation of pre-K students is not eligible for transportation aid currently under the state regulations. So that would be another change that would be nice to add. And I've advocated for that in years past that, you know, for example, we get reimbursed for our busing for our K-12 kids. We don't, that is not something that is provided for in the state formulas currently. Is that correct, Linda?
That's correct.
So it's that would the transportation would be at the full expense through the busing of the district currently. Not that we can't overcome that. I'm just, you know, citing the regulations.
Anybody else have any questions? A lot of good information. And I know we're going to be having additional conversations on it. Thank you for the input. So we're not gonna, you don't want to vote on it tonight, right?
No, I'm just looking for some direction to start communicating with the families about the registration process. The overall approval of the program would be, you know, you would approve as the general fund budget, the portion of the budget that would be allocated for the pre-K.
Okay. So,
So it's a year by year decision because it folds into the budget. Is that correct?
Yes.
because this year would only be an obligation to the general fund of $101,000, right? Because the federal funding is covering the
Yes, yeah.
rest. So previous budgets, if the program was to be kept, would be at an expense of the 620, right?
Well, less the aid. We're
Well-
always
well,
going to
minus
get the
rate.
aid.
So
Yeah.
300 and something $1,000 of general budget money.
Mhm.
But this year would just be the
That's right.
the 101.
That's correct.
So is there, and again, you know, you put it in the budget, the budget has to pass, so, you know, is there anybody that is really not in favor of the least little cute little 4-year-old? I mean, I support pre-K. I do. I see its benefits, but it is an expense to the district. And Kathleen and Joanne, we can attest to the fact of several years back when, you know, kindergarten was on the chopping block because of the expense. So, you know, right now,
Glad I wasn't around then,
it
Martin.
was tough.
It's always in some ways going to be a year-to-year decision, because almost everything is. You know, the foundation aid that we're receiving projected for next year, last year, this current year is not typical of what districts like East Greenbush have received. And you're honestly only one election away of having some of the funding streams that are available changing. And so right now we have UPK funds. We have a little bit of room in the general fund budget to sustain it.
For 23,
For
24.
23, 24, but it's really always going to be unless the state decided we're not going to have a UPK funding. We're just going to have pre-K to 12 school districts, and we're going to take the UPK funding and we're going to shift it into the foundation aid formula. And we're going to recalculate the aid that we provide schools. And we're going to say we really want to have universal pre-K by making sure that every district can offer it to their community. We're going to change the building aid formula, and we're going to let classrooms be built onto facilities so that we can have as many families that want to have pre-K have pre-K. So it's kind of a year-to-year decision because the way that it's been perceived in the past has been UPK was provided for those students in districts that had larger portions of their families economically disadvantaged. That seems to have changed over the last couple of years, but it's still not really universal pre-K because not everybody has enough classroom space and not everybody has enough room within their general fund budget to fund it. So it is kind of a year-to-year decision, unfortunately, right now. And again, we have to continue to beat the drums of advocacy to say, you know what, if you really care about growth in the children and the children doing well, and you care about the fact that you want to support working families, everybody should be able to have pre-K. We're fortunate to have it.
With New York State.
Right.
Helping us out.
Yes.
So, so really what you're asking is to go ahead to advertise for pre-K for the 23-24 school year in March is when we put the notification out. With
End of February.
end of February,
Yeah.
with using the rest of the grant money for universal pre-K. And only having to use $101,000 out of the general fund
That's correct.
for the 23-24 school year. So at this point, I would support that. Is, you know, it's tough. It is because it's $101,000 is a lot of money. I don't care if we have $100 million budget or a $50 million budget, $101,000 is a lot of money. So, basically our budget comes from the taxpayers of our community. And I've always been an advocate of keeping our tax levels low, always. Knowing that we're going to get a bit of an increase in some monies from the state. I do support the 23-24 moving forward and, readdress it next year again. And we talked about this when we first got this grant money, that we would have the universal pre-K, but it would be a year by year decision of the board. And I still, hold firm to that it's year to year based on funding. So right now I support the moving forward for 23-24, using the rest of the money and, approximately $101,000, out of the general fund.
One of the things that's been happening is, and Mark reminded me of it when he was just speaking, we have in our advertisement of pre-K in the last few years that we've had it, this year and last year, made it clear in our communication that it is a year-to-year decision and it's predicated on the continuation of grant funding from the state. It's been so popular and successful that maybe not everyone realized that. And so we've gotten a lot of inquiries to the district, and some the response has really been, well, we haven't made that determination yet. Some have interpreted that as we're not having it. There's been some concern, the district is not going to have it. So we just kind of want to eliminate some of that uncertainty and roll out the information and let people know who are thinking about, do I need to sign my child up for a private daycare? Do I need to make some other arrangement for a private pre-K? That EG is going to have at least the 3 classes in the slots that we've had last year, to alleviate some of the time considerations of some of the parents, because it's pretty competitive out there to get your child into the limited.
It is. I think
Programs that
it's
are
fair
available.
to let people know that, and I would assume most people probably have a backup plan because this is a lottery, so you're not guaranteed until you go through, but to
Exactly.
just explore your options. But this will be an option for at least 3 classrooms next year. And I do understand the expense of the $101,000. I would like to add, though, that I think it's an expense we're paying up front, and it can hopefully, if it works right, eliminate expenses at the middle school and high school level. I mean, there's so much research about early intervention. My kid's a product of that, of just what it can do for the long run. So I think it's money well spent now rather than
It's
you
your
know, 10 years
ROI,
later.
your return on
Yes.
investment, and it pays, for itself.
No,
It's
no.
it's a return on investment to some kids.
For
Some kids don't
61
get it.
students.
That's right.
Yeah,
That's fine.
yeah.
And you open it up, like kindergarten, and that 101,000 is going to go a lot higher.
Yeah.
But
So,
yeah, and I think that when we talk about this, right, as these are decisions and it's a lot of money, I do agree, but I also think that we obviously know that there is a want and a desire in the community. We can see that by the lottery list and even the talk, and if you look on the online boards and things, you can see that the want is there. So I implore us to think about that and to we need to have discussions and we need to engage the community. If this is a cost that the community feels like is worth it, then that's a different conversation than us deciding, $100,000 versus, something else. So I'd like us all to, think about that too, moving forward.
do you remember, Linda, how many names we had submitted?
Yes, last year we had 129 applicants. And so we have 61,
54 spots.
61 altogether because we have the
Oh, the
7 over at ACAC. So yeah, we had 129 applications last year. One thing I do want to say is that we had one applicant pull out because we didn't offer transportation. But the first year we did not offer transportation or after school services. And again, this year, so I'm aware of one family that pulled out of it for that reason.
Do you know what our kindergarten population is this year, roughly?
We're going to present for next year. Or
Currently.
some present 300 and
I don't know that off the
200.
top of my
Was
head.
it?
About
About
300.
300.
It's a little over 300, I believe.
So even right now off the
So
bat, your
it's-
demand is a third.
yes. We're going to present some projected enrollments at the next meeting for our K for elementary schools.
Mhm.
But it's generally falls around 300.
It's about 120 are interested out of potential 300.
Linda, I just want to thank you for doing the research and presenting it. I think this is a very valuable discussion, so thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Michelle, welcome. Any,
No, I would absolutely support it for this. I was on the list of my child not going to kindergarten and I protested immensely. Understand we have a vast variety in this community. So, we would need to have some say from the community, just like we did in kindergarten. It was kindergarten, it was the same year that it was the turf. And, it was me standing up there saying, very close to that year, and me saying, hello, we need kindergarten. So, we just need to consider that as we go through, and I wasn't even on the board at that point, but I was definitely vocal. I assure you.
One of the things we will do, it's really too early because we've only had the classes for 2 years, is look at the impact on when kids are moving into kindergarten, first and second grade. And we're starting the process of discussing how we might evaluate from a learning standpoint and a growth standpoint the pre-K program, but it's just too early to do that right now.
Well, we have our nice anecdotal evidence already.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do.
Great to hear.
So the first group are kindergartens this year at Red Mill.
Right.
So when we have any data.
They're not all at Red Mill, though. Their
Yeah,
Red
yeah,
Mill
they
class
come
was
throughout the
kind of
district.
distributed among the other schools because it's by the lottery. So it's a handful of
Do we
kids.
know where they went?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
How did they do on their assessment? Do we know that or?
I can't answer that at this point.
I mean,
The kindergarten screening,
Yeah.
I can't. It's one of the ways that we're talking
yeah,
about.
if the board would like, I can try to put together some of our kindergarten data,
Yeah,
looking
that'd
at
be
those
interesting to
students.
see.
The one challenge that I would say is it would be very hard. It's a small group and it would be very hard to kind of compare those students to the rest of our students because many of those students also went to pre-K, just a different pre-K. So it's, but I can get data on our current, on our last year's pre-K students.
I think
kindergarten
we'd be excited to hear.
To see that.
Positive, you know, regardless
When you
of
can, no problem.
funding.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely. Next
That'd
time.
be interesting.
No, that'd be great.
The
I'd love
potential
to.
control group could even be the kids who were in the lottery who were denied if they didn't have another option. If we know that they didn't go anywhere, but they weren't able to get into our lottery, they weren't selected. That would be, I don't know if you.
I don't know how good our data is right now on how many kids didn't have pre-K.
Right. I
We'd
know
have to
we,
maybe build that into, it might be part of kindergarten.
It
Is
is
it part
part
of
of
our
our
kindergarten question?
registration
Okay.
packet.
so
It
part
might not be completely accurate.
Yeah, part of our registration packet, I have talked to Linda about this, does ask if your child has attended pre-K.
Mhm.
It's in the packet, but we don't capture that throughout in our student, in our power school system. There's no way to segregate. We collect the data in terms of when they register, but we don't then,
It doesn't follow them
doesn't follow
necessarily.
them.
Well, the other
Through.
interesting part
Yeah.
is some people only go to pre-K 1 year, some go
Yeah.
2,
Right.
back. What's
But I
the difference
can-
in that group?
I can 100% get us information
Something.
on the students who did attend pre-K, so we have those names.
Great.
All right, anybody else? Oh, sorry.
I was just gonna add too, as part of that, when Linda did the research, we did ask if any of I got the lists from Linda of the schools that responded to her. I reached out to the assistant superintendents for curriculum instruction of all those and asked if any of them have any data on their pre-K students, kind of like what we're talking about, any longitudinal data, and none of them have collected any of that data.
That's really a shame, especially for like Troy, who's had it for 25 years.
Right.
That's a shame.
Appreciate everybody's involvement. I appreciate your support for moving forward. Thank you.
All right. Next would be approval of programs for resident children with disabilities. Resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent, the Board of Education of the East Greenbush Central School District hereby approves programs for residents, children with disabilities. Could I have a motion? Kathleen, Cheryl, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Next, under regular business, resolved that the Board of Education of the East Greenbush Central School District hereby approves the request to defend and indemnify, and the resolution is attached. I will need a motion for that. Jen, Michelle, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. We will move on to committee reports, and we'll start with Marissa.
Thank you, Mr. Mann. We currently have reposted the Assistant Transportation Supervisor position That posting deadline closed yesterday. And I was reviewing applicants today, and we have a good amount. We have about 10. And from first review, it looks like 6 are qualified with the minimum qualifications. For instructional vacancies, we had a school psychologist part-time resign 2 weeks ago. We had posted that originally, resulting in no applicants. Our second posting resulted in 3 applicants, and Mr. Coyle is scheduling first-round interviews. Our part-time health teacher posting closed in mid-January. We had 2 candidates, and final interviews are scheduled for Monday, February 6th. We are still in search of a long-term reading teacher substitute at Goff Middle School to assist with the informational literacy course at the 6th grade level. I do know that Mr. McHugh had conducted building level interviews, and there was no successful candidates for that role. So we are going to be reposting. We have 2 part-time teaching assistant positions, one at Columbia and the other at Goff. The Columbia part-time teaching assistant appointment is on the consent agenda tonight. For our non-instructional vacancies, our automotive mechanic interviews occurred yesterday with myself and Dr. Wanda McQueen. We also have been doing continuous recruitment for bus driver interviews. So we also had additional bus driver interviews yesterday as well. The vacant bus aide position, we did make a selection, and that appointment for recommendation is on tonight's consent agenda. Our central receiving worker posting closed yesterday, and Mr. Bickle and myself are reviewing applications. We have 2 vacant custodial worker positions that we're looking to fill. Our human resources generalist position was approved in last year's budget in May. We submitted everything to civil service directly thereafter. It's been 8 months, and it still has not gone for approval. The commission at civil service has met 2 times in the last 8 months. They were supposed to have a meeting last night. My office got a call this morning from their secretary saying that meeting was canceled, and they hope to get a meeting early next week. So I have already posted for that position. I've selected a candidate. We're really just waiting on civil service approval. And so hopefully I will report good news next week. Our final interviews for monitor were conducted. Purchasing associate, we are in the same situation. I have forwarded our successful candidate onto civil service. They have indicated that they have not been able to meet as a commission, so they cannot approve of that at this point. And then we have 2 senior monitor positions, one at Columbia High School, one at Goff. Our most recent ad in the Times Union paper was able to provide us with a larger pool of candidates, and Mr. McHugh and myself are conducting final interviews early next week. Anyone have any questions?
I just had one, the 0.6 health teacher. Is that at the high school?
That is split between the high school and the middle school. Our part-time health teacher was moved into the full-time
That's
position
right,
that was
okay.
vacant. So this
That's
is
what I was thinking of.
that person's backfill.
Alright.
But we do have a certified candidate in the
Great.
final round of interviews. So that is great news.
So good.
Anybody else? Thank you, Marissa.
Thank you.
Linda?
I have no.
Nothing else?
It's not enough for me tonight.
All right, Roy?
Sure. I do not have the minutes from the meeting on here. We just had a committee for curriculum study meeting just this afternoon at 3:30. So I just wanted to give an update on that. We had 2 really good, I thought really great presentations. The first one was from Mr. Goodwin on an app called Chat GPT. I don't know if you've kind of been seeing around the news a lot of the artificial intelligence technology that is going on. So he gave a really great, presentation on that. And we had the committee had a really good discussion around what does that mean for education and how can it be embraced? Because that technology is only going to continue to grow and get better. We kind of had some conversations regarding some issues that come from that. Actually, Mr. Goodwin shared, it was really good how he actually shared a conversation that he had with this app, and it's pretty unbelievable. This, it was a conversation actually about the Yankees, and he was just asking it questions about the Yankees, and it was giving answers. And when it gave a wrong answer, I think it was, I think he asked, what are the two Yankees that have been on the team for the longest? And it gave CC Sabathia and someone else who are no longer on the team. Mm-hmm. He then questioned it and said, oh, those two are not on the team. And it said, oh, I understand that, but these two have been on the team long as well. And he actually even went over how it told him that it would learn from what he just said, saying that those two are not on the team, and it will use that in future conversations. So it was really good. And like I said, we had a nice discussion around, what's that going to mean for us as we continue to move forward. And this is only one app. There's several, there's several other apps. And I know that, like the math department, I know has been dealing with it for several years with things like photo math, where students can take a picture of a math problem and it just does it for them. I know that was a big issue during COVID for many districts, that students were getting great grades and then they come back to school the next year and those grades aren't quite matching what they may have been doing at home. So that was really good. Then we had a second one from our RTI coordinator, Lisa Mahar, on a program called Haggerty Phonemic Awareness. It's something that we've been piloting in our elementary schools in several classrooms, kindergarten and first grade. She shared some really great data that she's received on that from December, kind of a beginning of the year, benchmark data, and then the growth that those students have made. So we're really excited, and the committee endorsed us moving forward with that. So we're I've been talking with Lisa, and we're talking about, what's that going to look like in terms of rolling out for next year for all of our kindergarten and first grade classrooms.
You talk about artificial intelligence. There was it was just recently on 60 Minutes where they did a spot about artificial intelligence and them carrying on a conversation, and it was wow. That's all I can say. So but great, thank you. Sounds awesome. At least we know Peter's a Yankee fan. All right, Mr. Simons.
Yes, we've had two committee meetings recently that I chair. We had our meeting of the advocacy committee, and we met on January 12th. We reviewed information regarding the governor's state of the state remarks. We talked about the legislative priorities of school superintendent's council. We looked at some of the information from the school board's position statements and NICEP. We have 3 students currently on that committee, been attending regularly. Myself, we have a parent, Linda Weger, Kathleen Curtin is on that committee. And from the discussions we've had, I thought it would be a nice idea, because the 3 students that we have involved are seniors, and they were 9th graders when the COVID hit, that and they're so articulate and intelligent, to invite them to come to some advocacy meetings with the legislature. So we sent out a letter this morning to the regular members of the advocacy committee, which would also include Mr. Garib, the need to neglect Mr. Garib, and Mr. Wagner, who was here actively involved in the committee. And we have appointments scheduled for February 16th, which is the NISCUS Advocacy Day. Doesn't fall this year during the conference. It falls on a different date. So we're going to hopefully have the students provide us the permission slip and want to go and attend. And we're going to bus down there to the legislative office building. We have an appointment with Senator Jake Ashby at 11 a.m., followed by a noon appointment with our new Assemblyman, Scott Vendette. And we also have a 1 o'clock with John McDonald. And we're going to meet a week ahead of time and plan out some of our discussions, particularly looking at the budget proposals of the state. I also want the students to share with the legislators their experiences over the last 4 years in high school some of the courses that they liked taking, some of their own perspectives on mental health, technology, and some other issues. The office staff of these offices was very excited that we were going to bring students. So I think they're looking forward to it. We're looking forward to it. And we'll have a chance between now and then to look at the specifics of the budget. And hopefully it'll be a good experience for everybody. That's our advocacy committee. And we also had a meeting on January 17th of our committee to promote global education. That's our diversity, equity, and inclusion committee. We're moving forward in the planning of our one district, one community, one book initiative around the idea of inclusiveness. We had a promotional booth at the Winterfest that got a lot of attention. We had copies of the book available and a raffle. It went very well. A lot of people representing community groups came up and were very interested in what we were doing, want to be part of reading Elephant in the Room. I think we've received 3,000 copies of the book.
3,500.
3,500 copies of the book. We're working on putting out some communication to get some sponsorships from our PTOs and other organizations to help us fund some of the books. We've got about a month more of planning to do, and people are getting interested in it. I got invited to go to speak to the Kiwanis Club about it. They want to get involved. Rotary Club called me yesterday. I've spoken to Lynn about this, offering to help us and support us financially with some of the books. So we're trying to stir up some energy, and the raffle winners were very happy to win a copy of the book and gift certificate for the new restaurant across the street. And it's going really well, and hopefully will be a positive activity, bring everybody together. We're going to run it from March 1st up until the spring break. And the board members will receive a copy of the book, and you will be required to read it.
Can you give me some information on that? Because they may have some people that may be willing to.
Absolutely. I'll send it out to you. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Have you guys engaged with the library to see if they have copies or are interested in purchasing?
We
more?
invited all of the town library directors that we serve to join us. Actually, we had a couple of the librarians attend one of our organizational meetings, and yes, they're on board with it, and they'll have copies of the book available, and
That's great.
they're going to be part of our promotion.
Great. Awesome.
So that concludes my committee reports.
Any questions? All right. We have no table motions at this time. Under old business, could we get a update on the installation of the bus cameras?
Actually, Dr. McQueen is here. She sent me an email on this yesterday, so we'll put her on the spot.
On the spot.
Dr. McQueen. Bus installation of the stop arm cameras.
Sure, bus patrol had some staffing issues, so we made space available so they could put and install 4 cameras per day. For a couple of weeks, they had to cut down to 2. Due to staffing issues, that's also happening in the district area. So we're about halfway there. They still are saying that they're on target to finish now towards the middle to end of February. They were in test mode, so as the cameras get installed, they're actually working, they're activated, but they were in a systems check mode around the end of the month, so the end of last week. They shifted over into actual mode, so that what that means is for the first 30 days that they go live, they're reporting the violations and reviewing those, but for 30 days by law, they have to then issue written notifications and warnings to motorists that have buses or the government is out. And then after that 30 days expires, so around March 1st, then actual citations will start to be issued. And I was actually running dispatch yesterday, and a driver reported that a motorist had gone by the car stopped with their arms out.
Did that bus have one of the working cameras?
It did not.
Oh.
It did not. But we have called the local police, and they said unless we have a video showing the
Right.
license plate, there's nothing.
Thank you for that. Staying on top of it.
I have a question related to that.
Yeah.
So assuming that we incurred the cost of installing these, or
It
no?
was zero cost to the district.
Okay,
It's all funded by the bus patrol company. And, they make their money back during the, fine procedure.
no, okay,
Working with, so none of the fine money does not come back to the district. It goes to the municipality. So being that we have East Greenbush, North Greenbush, Skodak, Nassau,
mhm,
depending on where the violation occurred, summons is issued, there's a fine assessed. Bus patrol keeps a small portion of that, and then the rest goes to the municipality to use, normally to hopefully funnel it back into law enforcement or something, safety related in that municipality. And that's how bus patrol recoups their cost of installing the cameras on the buses. So it's no cost to the district, which is really good. And I did see, a couple of the buses on the road that have had them installed. So it's been almost 3 years since we did this, and it's finally, coming into place. So I'm happy. So
Just an update, the lettering has to be relocated, or it's lettering has to be relocated on many of our buses, and that has been completed on all.
very good. Thank you. Didn't mean to put you on the spot.
I knew she knew the answer.
Any other old business for anybody? All right. Consent agenda. Any questions? Joanne?
Well, item 13B for separate votes, he was on there.
13B.
Yes.
So we'll just,
Before we go, I want to make mention of the retirees on that and congratulate them, thank them. Impressive list of a lot of years put into the district by those teachers and staff.
yes, exactly. A lot of years that we'll be losing, and we do wish them well in their retirement. And so, all right. Any other questions? So I will need a motion for, we'll pull B, vote separately, A, C through G for approval of the consent agenda. So I'll need a motion for that. Joanne, second. Michelle, all in favor? Opposed? Abstaining? All right. Then I will need a motion for B. Kathleen, second. Cheryl, all those in favor? Opposed? Abstaining? One. Thank you.
And I just want to note, it's great to see the Montreal trip back on. So thank you for all you guys have done to bring those things back to these kids.
Welcome. Thank you for the support. Appreciate it.
We have no addendums. Is there any new business? Michelle? Cheryl? Okay. Emily?
Nope. Oh, wait.
Yes.
Last week, the assembly, I've had many positive comments on that from parents. So love to encourage it. I don't know if they have one for the younger elementary school.
They do, and we have done that in the past. We've also done it with high school.
The high
But
school, I
yes,
knew we did. Yeah.
Yes, Sweetheart and Heroes,
Yes.
a very successful program, very positive influence on the kids. This one particularly addressed bullying and, not being a bystander, being an upstander, and just to have a really nice way about them, and some very encouraging stories about their own personal experiences, including one of their presenters who was wounded quite significantly in Iraq, and talks about him overcoming that and his experiences. And the other one was is a former MMA champion, and really engages very well with the kids. So
It was such a winner for the parents and the
Yeah.
students. I mean, many of my son's friends just commented on how wonderful they enjoyed it. So whatever we can do to continue those, I
Absolutely.
highly encourage it. Thank you very much.
you're welcome. Mr. McHugh is also one of their speakers, has been one of their speakers in the past, and he has a very close relationship with that organization, and I'm glad that he brought it into to the middle school.
Any other new business? Second chance for the public. Yes, Mr. Grignon.
I just want to just echo sentiments from Mrs. Taylor. Greg, congratulations, retirees. I had the privilege of working with the Crawls and Mrs. Fitzgerald during my time at Goff Middle School. And I know that collectively, and Ms. Gannon may have the different number, but I think I did the math right, it's 143 years of service between all of them. And I just wish the Crawls a very happy retirement because I know they gave a lot to Goff Middle School during their time there. From the talent show to they originally were the ones that started the Halloween Happening way back in the day. Have taken over their contributions to not just also EGTA leadership and the thing that Sean did there as well, but also just everything that they did for kids at the school. And I know that they will be deeply missed at Goff Middle School. And they will be very difficult shoes to fill. And I also had the privilege of working with Melissa DuPont as a parent during my time there. Wonderful educator, as well as Kathy Fitzgerald. I never had the privilege of working with Patty Leroy, but I see her at the CTAP program currently. And her art projects are wonderful that she's done with CHS and also at CTAP. So congratulations to all our retirees.
Thank you, Wayne. Anybody else? Board forum number 2. We do have a need for executive session.
Yes.
I do not foresee us coming back into regular session, so I will need a motion to go into executive session. Emily, Jennifer, all those in favor? All right. Thank you, everybody, for coming. And we'll see you in 3 weeks.
February 15th.
February 15th will be our next meeting.